Greetings, friends. Well, today I thought it would be appropriate, especially as there seems to be this great attempt to keep things believable in a certain way, like that Joe Biden won the election. Boy, if I say that, some of my platforms might get taken down just by even saying that. Like YouTube trying to say any fraud, any suggestion of fraud means that we're going to take your video down. I mean, my goodness, go back and, if it's still there, go back and look at my video on fraud and the 10 ways at least that fraud has happened in this election. Well, I'm telling you, they want to control your thinking. They want to control your mind. I had to really deal with this when they were taking me to court to try to force me on antipsychotic medications. And I talk about that in my book, which you should get a copy of if you don't have it. And hear that story of a real life persecution that happened in this country, which is coming to more people if we go down the path that some want us to go down. So, are you believing the virtual reality that news organizations are trying to get you to believe, the mass media is trying to get you to believe and think? Well, there's enough eyewitness people, testimony of people that were really there, that saw what happened and have exposed and talked about under penalty of jail, that they would, a felony if they would say something false, have not just making up a story, but really putting their reputation on the line to say that this stuff happened. And it has. So it's not no evidence whatsoever of fraud. It's happened all over. It's widespread and many people were a part of it. And I hope that we'll change and a lot of this will be admitted and confessed. But I thought it was appropriate as we're thinking about all of this story they're trying to get you to believe in this virtual world and this idea that the media, every day, you can hear it, and I hear sometimes, and I've heard it on Fox News, although I'm doubting some of the stuff on Fox News now, the way they've gotten on board with all this. But I've seen them do the montages of what the quote is for the day, because you'll hear it, especially from the leftists and the Democrats. You'll hear them. They say the same thing, no matter what news organization they're with, no matter who they are. It's like some, I don't know, man. I don't know how they do it. Do they have a mass email that goes out and in the morning, or do they just all look at the same New York Times source or something and they all just sort of repeat the same thing? Because on all the major news show, they're like saying the same line, talking about Donald Trump being insane or talking, it's usually negative toward him, even though the issue isn't him. It's the belief system that he espouses or has governed by. Anyway, they want you to believe something that's not true. The media is not objective. They spin things and try to get you to think a certain way. And friend, if we don't go with what is real, what is true, and we try to just spin a story and make it believable and get enough people to believe it and have enough big tech censor it so that it seems like it's true. Have you realized that some of the stuff you were taught in school is not true? I mean, have you realized like the pictures that Ernest Haeckel put into the books that were in school books and have been even way, just 20 years ago, almost common in school books of the alleged development of the human being in the womb that supposedly mirrored evolutionary development, which is it's a lie. It's a lie. That's not true. We have science. We have video observation of the development in the womb from conception all the way to the birth. We know the whole process. We know what happens at each stage, and it's never evolution. It's a special creation and miracle of God, because Scripture says that we are fearfully and wonderfully made, and His works are marvelous in our eyes. And that ought to be a verse in Psalm 139 that you really focus on, because it's a good psalm to look at and think about. But getting us into this subject of this virtual world, I wanted to read this article that I wrote Actually, way back 11 years ago, as we come into December the 10th of 2009, I wrote a blog article called Virtual Reality. And I played off of something at Virginia Tech that they had, which I'll talk about as I get into this. So I said, events over the past few days lead me to discuss a very important subject in this article. No doubt most of you are familiar with the concept of a holograph or even the holodeck on the Star Trek shows. These programs portray a virtual world that appears just as true as the real world. Likely you have seen some 3D movie, such as the recent edition movie release of A Christmas Carol, or now A Christmas Carol, that was 11 years ago, but that might be one you'd want to watch as we head toward Christmas. Or possibly you've even been to an IMAX theater, and you have the multi-dimensional aspects that can impact you with your senses as you see things three-dimensionally, and maybe you're even in a theater to experience the seats moving or other things happening. So it gives you an experience that's more virtual and not really what's going on to relate to whatever you're watching. These theaters like that, they make you feel as though you're part of the show. Most of us are at least familiar with or even regularly experience stereo sound and even the effects of stereo surround systems. Virginia Tech does cutting-edge research in an area they call the cave, where images and sounds are projected to stimulate something like a Star Trek holodeck. Now, I don't know what's happened there. I haven't kept up with all the specifics of what they're doing, but I imagine the technology has increased as it has in so many ways with the virtual reality things that go on, and even these virtual things that are more popular now, as you can put these glasses on and you can see things in a world, and you can even interact with that world, and it's not really the world you're walking around in and living in, but it's kind of neat to be able to experience those things as long as you keep that separation, that's virtual, that's not really where you are. Many gamers like to play virtually and experience the full effect of the game and actually be there. It's nice, I guess, for you to actually be somewhere when you're not really there and you don't have the consequences of being there. But if you don't keep it separate, you'll think you're in that virtual world, and you'll go out and walk in front of a vehicle and get hit and get hurt. So, the real world kind of hits you right in the face and smacks you because it's not a virtual world, it's a real world. All right, so as I said here, these virtual worlds and our own imaginations will tend to desensitize us to readily spotting a counterfeit. A recent incident with fake money where I currently work illustrates how it's so often for someone to pass off a clear counterfeit as a real thing. And of course, if you work in any money, where any money is exchanged, you know that many people try counterfeits to try to pass something off, the virtual money and not real money in that respect, not virtual digital, but just not really real, the real thing. In fact, you can even do this personally. You can be counterfeit with others around you. Acting is so common and seen as so important today that many are finding it easier to pretend to be something that they are not. Do you find yourself doing this? Are you leading a double life, or pretending to be one way before some and a different way before others, and even different when you are alone? Maybe you should go back and watch the video I did about masks that you wear. It seems that this is almost a requirement today for those who would be politicians. You put on a certain mask and say certain things in front of one crowd, and then do another mask and things in front of other crowds, or you just wear a mask everywhere. But okay, but politicians do that, and unfortunately for them, there's video and audio often taken, and they are shown to be hypocritical in what they say, appealing to one group and saying one thing and then to another. That's often the way politicians have worked. So that's not the way we should work, certainly. I think the average person is really more interested in what is real. And we are. You want to see somebody who's real, not somebody who's pretending, not someone who's acting one way and then being different somewhere else. You want to see a real person. You want to know that somebody's really there because you recognize you're a real person. Now, though increasing technology keeps people interested in the latest things, the tendency is for one to grow bored with the virtual and long for what is real. And I think that's the case. I think, while some people and maybe young people are content at the moment to be in a virtual world and gaming and stuff, they're going to get bored with it. They're going to want to get out and do activities and things more. And I think that's why you saw protests in the summer and why you've seen more people at rallies and stuff, because people are wanting what's real. People are wanting to get out there and take a real stand and make a real difference in the world. And you can if you don't live in this virtual world. Friend, there is a reality that many today are not understanding as they could. There is the physical world and there is the spiritual world. I've talked about this before in some of my earlier videos. One is just as real as the other, though one most often goes unseen by our perceptions. The spiritual world is connected to the physical world, and those paying attention can learn to see many of the interactions. Spiritual truth is no different from physical truth in principle, but it is different in its realization. A day is coming when what has been hidden will come into full view. Will you be ready for that day? The Bible tells you how you can be ready and explains much more about this real spiritual world. It also warns us that there is a spiritual deception at work too, and tells us how to spot it and not be deceived by it. Don't be deluded. And I wrote that blog, Delusion, which I also have a video of, which I think has gotten more views than any other that I've done. You could go and look at that video also. And you can be certain of your faith as much as you can about anything else in the world. Faith need not and should not exclude reason. Investigate for yourself. You have little excuse for ignorance in this day and age of information. Be sure that you are not being deceived or even deceiving yourself. It is easy to live in a false or virtual reality. This will not help you when all things are made known and come to light. Are you ready? Now, we do need to be ready. And I do need to maybe talk about some of these things the Bible speaks about that are coming in the future, so you're not confused with what is actually happening in the real world and what the Bible says will happen in the real world. So maybe if I don't do it this year, maybe I will at the beginning of the year get into some more prophetic teaching as well. But I want you to share this video with other people. Like the video, share it with others, subscribe to my channel, and hit the notification bell so you'll be ready for the next video as I challenge you in your thinking and as we look in the real world and not just this virtual world.